Good morning or good afternoon, depending on where you're joining us from. My name is Bali Tsema. I am a client success manager here at Velosio's NetSuite practice. My main focus in this role is to ensure that our clients leverage all of NetSuite's potential. And today we are going to talk about one of the most overlooked features of NetSuite in my perspective. With that, I would like to give it over to Jeff Andrews.
Very good, Bali. Thanks. Welcome, everybody. We like doing these webinars. You may have attended some in the past where we've talked about all different things within NetSuite, but one of our hopes is that you gain some knowledge today and learn some ways that you can optimize more in NetSuite. We'll cover some things big, we'll cover some things small. Kind of big and small is relevant to what you do in your business and what might be a good automation or a good tool to help you and your team and your work. My name is Jeff Andrews. I lead the NetSuite practice here at Velosio. I am based in Cincinnati, and I know we've got clients I can see from all around the country today that are on the webinar, so welcome. Again, the purpose today is to make you aware of some of what NetSuite offers beyond the core modules. And today I'm gonna move back and forth between some slides and actual NetSuite. This slide here represents what you may think of core NetSuite features or modules. We're not going to cover that today. I mean, we're always happy to talk through those things anytime you need, but today we're going to cover what are referenced or thought of as either SuiteApps or bundles, and all around how you can leverage these to get more done. Some of these are free, some of these are not free. I'll kind of cover that as we go through this. Most of them are going to be free, and a lot of them are going to be from NetSuite, and there'll be a few third-party products in here as well. Again, many either free or trial, but I think you'll find some value in what we are going to show. We're going to move pretty quickly. This is less about a detailed demo and more of just awareness of many of these tools. So let's jump right in. The one thing I'd say is if you have a question as we go through these, feel free to throw those in the question box. You should see a question box out there. Throw those in there. We'll pick those up, and toward the end, we'll answer any questions that you have as we go through this. So first, some of you may not even be aware of what SuiteApp is, or the SuiteApp store for NetSuite, or what a bundle is. So let me cover that real quick. The SuiteApp store is an area in NetSuite where it's an ecosystem, just like you have probably an iPhone or an Android, and you go to the App Store or an App Store of some type, and you can see apps and download apps to do certain things. Sometimes we refer to these as point solutions. If you're not sure how to get to the App Store, in your NetSuite instance, over on the far right, you should see a menu item called SuiteApps. And you can also just go to SuiteApp.com, and it's an app store. This is what it looks like if you've never been there. And what's neat is you come through here and search for different things and click on them. Depending on what the tool set is, you can get more information on that app. We're going to cover here. I'm going to show you one today. If I can find it. Oh, I've got to turn that filter off real quick. So application performance monitor, we're going to talk about just for a second today. And if you want to know more about any app, you can click on it. You can look at the features. Many of them will let you install it right from this screen. Now, if you've been around NetSuite for a while, you may also be familiar with something called bundles. And a bundle, kind of before the App Store became the prime way to find these apps or load these apps, there was something called Suite Bundles. And in your instance of NetSuite, depending on your permission set, there is an area called Suite Bundler, and you can go to search and install bundles. And so some of what we're going to talk about today are bundles. I'm going to search for one called drag and drop, file drag and drop. More and more of NetSuite apps like this are moving away from bundles and more to the App Store. But just know there's two different areas here. Some are in bundle, some are in SuiteApp. If you ever have any questions, like you can't find anything, let us know. What's neat here is, in this case, a bundle we're going to talk about today. You can see a little bit about it. You can see how many clients have it installed in their instance. And you can see if it's a public or managed bundle. We might talk about that a little bit more later. Public bundle usually means that you should be able to see it and you can install it. And if we click on this, this is where you can go to install the bundle, just like that. So pretty easy to do that. Now, please don't go, if you do have permissions to do these things, don't just willy-nilly go install 15 or 20 of these things at once. Talk through it with your admin or whoever in the organization is the most appropriate person to cover these things with. Because, not that it's going to mess up anything, but you just don't want to add a lot if you're not going to use them. Okay, so hopefully that's enough on the App Store and bundles at a high level so you know what they are. Let's jump into the very first app, and I'm going to talk about the Subsidiary Navigator. So if any of you are not familiar with this tool and you have multiple legal entities, you probably have a structure set up in NetSuite that looks something like that image right there. And if we pop over to NetSuite and I go to my dashboard, I'm actually going to pop over to the controller role here. I might move around between a couple different roles and demo instances to show a few of these different features. But what you'll see on my dashboard in this instance is I've installed the Subsidiary Navigator bundle, and it gives me a view of my corporate structure. But not only does it give me a view of it, what's neat is I can start to transact or watch my dashboard. So right now I'm looking at the parent view. If I click on the Velosio sub, all my reminders, all my KPIs, and all my trend dashboards are going to immediately update to just show me work in that sub. If I go back to the parent, you'll see again all these various numbers change and KPIs change. So if you've got multiple legal entities and you'd like to leverage Subsidiary Navigator, that is a free app in the App Store, and we can help you with that if you need any help. Again, we're going to move through these pretty quickly, ask any questions, take any notes, and we can follow up. The next one is file drag and drop. Well, that's one I just showed you a minute ago, and I'm actually going to pop into a different instance here for just a minute, and we're going to show a few of these in what we call a services demo instance. So there's some services features I'm going to show in a minute. So let me jump over to that instance. Drag and drop, if you're not using it, it's a pretty useful tool. So it allows you to drag and drop files on just about any object in your instance. So we're going to go to, we're going to go to Big Supplies. And let's say here on Big Supplies, you've got, let's see here, we're going to go and we're going to say we've got, a signed sales order. Maybe we created a sales order and we want to attach that signed sales order. Maybe it was hand signed or manually signed. What I can do is take that file and drag it right here in the landing zone, and it's going to upload that file to this customer record. Now, you may already know that you can go to the Communications tab, go to Files, and you can manually attach files. But that's a little bit easier way to give you drag and drop capability to any object that you'd prefer. And there you can see the one that I just dropped in there. It tells me it's a PDF file. I can download it. I can view it by simply clicking there, anything like that. What this is also nice for is you'll see here that we've also got a, let's say, a project record. So if I go to, we're actually going to go to PRJ1137 project. It's for a different client called Copper Software. We've got our drag and drop zone. So maybe we've got a project design file. And you can kind of see what that file looks like here. It's a bit of a layout of some work we're doing on this IT install. Again, drag and drop it, and now that project will have that document, and everybody with access to the project can see those documents. So drag and drop's a great tool. It's very easy to install and configure, and you likely have many uses for that. So hopefully that'll come in handy. All right, let me pop back over. We're going to keep moving here. Next one is Employee Directory, another free, like all the things we've covered so far, bundle that you can install. And what this does, I'm going to show this from the employee record. So if you've got your employees using NetSuite for either time entry, expense request, or purchase requests, or expense reports, things like that, you're probably familiar with this view here, the employee view in the employee portal. And I'm logged in as Abby Kwan, and I can see, certain things like purchase requests that I've made, the approval status of expense reports, etc. But one of the things this employee directory does is it gives me this box at the top, and I can come in and search for somebody. I can view the actual directory. If I want to view the full directory, I can scroll through and see details. Or I can even browse. So if I'm not sure kind of the reporting structure within the organization, I can go to the org browser maybe I'm looking for a certain project manager that's in Mark Collins's organization. And my permissions will enable, whatever my permissions are will allow me to see certain data on the record. So in this case, I'm not allowed to see personal phone numbers and addresses, things like that. But you're in this tool able to, in the preferences, turn on or off what you'd like your employees to see from a setting standpoint, their department, their location, their phone number, all that stuff. And I can drill right into an individual. So the employee directory is a handy feature that's also accessible in the mobile app. Your employees have great capability in the NetSuite mobile app to conduct these things like purchase requests, expense reports, but now they can also see the employee directory. All right, one other thing I want to show while I'm out here, let me flip back over to the controller role, is if you think about some of the apps or bundles we've just talked about, drag and drop, employee directory, etc. What's nice is that your dashboard, when you personalize that, you have access to, of course, all the common ones you hopefully are taking advantage of on your dashboard, but any SuiteApps or bundles that have a dashboard portlet, you can use and drag and drop right on your dashboard. And you see a couple of those we've already talked about. All right, let's jump to our next app. Let me flip back over to our PowerPoint. We're going to talk about purchase to project. So many of you have projects that you track in your organization because you either have a services business, a consulting business, or you do some type of project where you're tracking something for a client, and maybe you have expenses associated to that project. Some of those may be labor, some of that might be purchases. What this Suite app does from NetSuite, another free app, is it gives you and the project managers in your organization the ability to associate a purchase directly to a project. So I'm going to flip back over here. We're going to pop over as the project manager, Mark Collins. And I'm going to go up here to expenses and purchases, and we're going to create a purchase order. So if I come in here to purchase order, I'm the project manager, maybe my team is working a project and they realize they need to go purchase some cables. So they have the ability here to enter in the purchase order. We're going to purchase this from Cable Plus Distributors. We'll put a memo in here, cables needed for IT install, something like that. We'll come down here, and this is going to be a project item. And we're going to say it's 2550, and the project that we're giving this for is this copper software IT install. And then we can come over here and even associate it to a particular task or activity code. All your classifications would show here. So now I've got the ability to add that and save it. And if once that pops up, let me pop over to the project. In fact, I'll just click on it here right from this record. So if you're familiar with the project view in NetSuite, this is either what's called Project Management Cloud Service or Suite Projects. This is a view you may be familiar with. We come over here to the P&L view. You'll see we now are tracking expenses. Maybe this was just something the company's going to pay for and not bill the customer, or maybe you bill the customer for it. That's totally up to you. But now it can be associated to that project, so you can see full project profitability. All right, that is purchase to project. Let's see, what do we have next? We have we're going to get into a couple of a little bit more technical areas. I say technical. These are tools that maybe your system admin or whoever's kind of knighted as the guru of NetSuite in your organization might want to take advantage of. This is especially valuable if you've got a fair amount of customizations. Maybe you've got a lot of users, you've got a lot of scripts that are automating things. This tool, if you don't already have it installed, is another free app from NetSuite, and it lets you monitor what's going on in NetSuite. If you ever have users that are saying, gosh, it just takes forever, if you didn't know it, the first time users log in the morning, the first time they do a transaction, that object or that transaction's loading and caching things in the user's browser. So the first time they do something in the morning, it'll take a little longer. But then now that some of that is cached throughout the day, it's much faster. But sometimes you might have a lot of scripts applied to an object, like a sales order. and it can slow down the system if it's not architected or coded properly. There's lots of ways that we can ensure that scripts are architected and working properly based on the type of script they are or when they run. I won't go into that detail yet, but I want to make sure you're aware of the APM tool. I'm going to pop over to NetSuite here, and we're going to go to the administrator view or role, log in as the administrator here. And what we have in the APM tool is this drop down here. So the APM gives you all these ways to monitor what's going on in NetSuite. I'm going to show you a couple ideas real quickly, and I think you'll get the idea of what this does. The first thing is the performance health dashboard will give you one view to kind of say, how do things look in the last 7 days between pages and scripts and save searches, integrations, processors. If you're not familiar with that, that's kind of the number of processors you have in place that can, for concurrency and the kind of throughput of scripting and integrations. And this view says, hey, all good. We got green lights all the way around. So let's go dig in a little bit more. And the next area I want to show you is what's called the record pages monitor. If you think about all the records or objects in NetSuite, like customers, vendors, employees, projects, what this will do is tell you, I'll tell you we're in a demo environment, so we don't have dozens and dozens of people hitting this. But if let's say I want to look over the last 3 days, how do pages look in their response time to load, or either the view or the edit or the save? So right now I'm looking over the last 3 days. My most utilized objects or records, project is the most common. One user in the last 3 days has viewed projects 17 times, and the average response time was 5 seconds. Now projects have a ton of data and a ton of subtabs, so that one's usually a little bit slower to load. If I come over here to my customer view, 9 different customer views, 2.2 seconds. I can also change my sort to show me the most users that are hitting objects. Hit refresh. So if I've got, things like customers and certain transactions, right? Those, we have more users hitting those. So that would show you the most user view or the highest response time, which pages are the slowest. So here, the second slowest is editing an employee. It took 4.3 seconds to load that. Now, usually these are faster. We, in this demo environment, don't use these very often. But you get the idea here. This will show you the objects or records in your instance and how long it's taking for them to either be viewed, edited, or saved. All right, the next one I'm going to go to is search performance analysis. And you can kind of see all the different ones here. I'm not going to go into all of them, but you can drill into very specific scripts to see how a script is doing. And it'll even show you the various breakdown of all the different things that script has to do. Run, the time to go get the data from the server and return that, the time within your organization, and maybe you've got a slow internet connection, so it'll show all of that. All right, the next one I'm going to go to is search performance analysis. So most likely, you've got a lot of saved searches in your organization. And what I have the ability to do here is to see if we've got any runaway saved searches, because maybe you've got a saved search that was built and it's returning, tens of thousands of rows or records. This tool here lets you come in and, again, various sorting and search for those saved searches and how often they're being run. Because if you do have some that are, we might refer to them as runaway searches, and you've got lots of users using it, this will tell you that. And then you can dig in and maybe find ways to filter those saved searches or reduce some of the data to improve the performance of those saved searches. All right, so hopefully you get the idea here of the APM tool and all that it can do. One other point there, concurrency monitor. If you've got a lot of people doing CSV imports or you've got a lot of integrations, this tool will help you kind of see what's going on with all that and are there any bottlenecks in the system. Okay, we're going to move to another technical tool, and I need to jump to another instance here for a minute. This is the first, I believe, Bali, correct me if I'm wrong, this is the first paid app. Zoom in a little bit, that's probably a little small. And this is from a company called StrongPoint. It's a tool called Flashlight. If you have, again, a lot of customizations in NetSuite, you've got a lot of scripts, a lot of custom records, custom fields, the tool they have is called Flashlight. It does have a paid subscription. They have a trial. I think usually you can get that trial for 3 months or so to use it and see if you want to keep it. I'll tell you, even in the trial period, it can give you a lot of value. So I have this loaded in this instance. You can see it has a new menu item up here. And what the flashlight tool does is it gives me insight, kind of like the APM tool does for performance overall of my systems, my users, things like that. The flashlight tool is going to put a spotlight on a few particular areas, and I'm going to show you a few of those first. I'm going to take you to the dashboard first. So when you load this tool, one of the first things you do is you have it run what's called the spider. And when you kick that off, depending on how much customization you have, it'll crawl your site, much like Google crawls the internet, all the time and finds new web pages, things like that. When you run the spider, it will crawl your instance of NetSuite. And in this case, in this instance, it came back and said, hey, there's 1,400 customizations, there's 200 scripts, there's all these saved searches, etc., 36 workflows. Now, those may seem like big numbers, but if you're familiar with some of the SuiteApps, like if you use electronic signature, we're going to talk about that one in a minute, like DocuSign or Adobe Sign, many times those install dozens, maybe 100 custom fields, not in that case, but many scripts. So don't be surprised if you run this, or in this instance, you see a lot of customizations because you can do a lot in NetSuite with custom objects, custom fields, scripts, etc. But for my dashboard, you can see it gives me a summary of all those things. The last time my spider was run, it was run yesterday. Gives you a little bit of a chart of the breakdown of some of your data, like how many custom fields and custom scripts and custom roles and things like that. That's a little bit of the dashboard. If I go a little bit deeper into a couple of the tools, I'm going to go into what they have here, which gives you a tool to drill in to some of your object records. So here are all the object records in this instance. Objects or records meaning customers, vendors, transactions, maybe custom objects, like we have one in here called BPQ, your campaigns. I'm going to go to the customer object, and I'm going to say show record document. And what this is going to do is it's going to show me all of the entity fields or custom fields associated with this object. So customer, you obviously know what a customer is, but here are a bunch of custom objects. One of those objects is called the channel tier. So if I click on channel tier, it's going to show me that custom field, its list view or views, the scripts associated with that field, and the searches, and even the sources. In this case, it's a drop-down that's populated with a list view, etc. So that's what's neat about this tool, is when it crawls, it enables you to go in and kind of see, where is this field being used? How many scripts touch this? Maybe different people in your organization wrote saved searches, and if you're ever thinking about, I might delete that custom field, I don't think anything's using it, well, this tool is going to make it easy for you to see if that's true or not. All right, then I'm going to go back up and I'm going to come down. You can see a couple others here. I'm going to go to something called the standard field impact analysis. And I'm going to select we'll select, let's say, our custom record field and run this. So the standard field impact analysis will give you a list report in a similar fashion to what we just looked at. But now what this shows me is, in this case, where was, what was the, where did this come from? Did it come from a bundle? Are there scripts associated with it? Are there workflows associated with it? What's the data source of this particular custom field? Again, in a list view, and sometimes this view will give you a little bit more data. And what's nice about all these tools in Flashlight is if I want to jump to a particular source or object, I can jump right to those because it gives me that link right from this record. So that's a little bit of a report in a list view to show you the impact of, in this case, custom fields. But you'll notice in that standard field impact, I can go and I can look at just about any standard element as well. All right, I'm going to go to one more here, and we're going to go to customizations. And you'll notice a number of other tools in the Flashlight tool. It'll give me a list of all customizations, an impact analysis. I can look at customizations with different things. So if you have maybe a team that builds, modifies, customizes. You probably know that a best practice is when they do things like that, well, you want to document well. Like descriptions, use the description field so that when somebody's trying to figure out what does this custom field do, well, look at this. Here's a quick way for me to see all these areas in NetSuite that we've modified that don't have a description. And if you're familiar with the edit in list view mode, what's nice is I can just, from this, get maybe my developers to come in and just, put a description in here so that we're more properly documented in case there's turnover or somebody forgets, what does this thing do? So that is a bit of the flashlight tool. There's also some features around user management, new employees that are granted access, inactive users, unused logins, and standard roles. And so there's a handful of things out here that you can come in and take a look at. All right, that is the flashlight tool from StrongPoint. Again, I think that's the first one we've talked about that does have a trial, but it does cost money if you want to keep it for the long haul. Okay, let's see. That was the flashlight tool. Sorry, I didn't cover the slides, but we'll put this out there as a recording in case you want to come back and look at some of these notes, but I think we talked about just about all those. Okay, the next one we're going to talk about is electronic signature. Now, Adobe Sign and DocuSign are the two main providers out there that you've probably heard of. There are a few others, but these are the two big ones, and they both have pre-built integration with NetSuite. So the idea here is I think you probably have signed something before with electronic signature, but if you're not familiar with how these tools work in NetSuite, let me kind of demo that for you. So we're going to go over to a record here. We'll go over to a customer, and this customer is called Leap Business Technology. You can see in this instance, we've got the DocuSign installed. Now, here's a little comment before I show you how this works. I'll use DocuSign as an example. DocuSign has a number of different subscriptions. Some you can just go to the web, sign up for like 1 or 2 users. It's called their online user or online account. And then they have business accounts. Generally, you need a business account to leverage this functionality. It technically does work with a web account, but you're at risk of it not, they could turn it off or something like that. So you really need a business account for this to function properly. But the beauty is it's very easy to install. We install this for a number of our clients. It takes just a couple minutes to install. It takes maybe 30 minutes to configure it based on how you want to use it, which objects you want those buttons to show up on. But here's the beauty of it. Let's say that, and by the way, we use NetSuite for our customers when we want to create a master services agreement or a statement of work or a support agreement, anything like that. We have those set up as templates, and we're not going to cover that tool today. That's called document generation, but all that's in all of your instances. So if you're not leveraging that, ask us. It's a great tool. We actually have if you go to our Velosio YouTube channel, there's a webinar out there we did a while back on that. You can kind of watch that and learn how to use it. But let's say you've got a contract or any document you need signed. If I pull up that record, could be a customer, could be an opportunity, could be a project, and I click send with DocuSign, once this is installed and configured, it's going to pop open my DocuSign account as a user, and it's going to give me the ability to sign anything. Now, if I have some documents that I put in file drag and drop, and I threw 1 or 2 in there, so you can see, it's going to go ahead and load that up, and you can see right here, if I have it, you may be familiar with these tools, you can have templates, so you can have it automatically put the signature lines where they need to go. But right here from NetSuite, I clicked send with DocuSign, and I can drag and drop all the fields over here. And once I've got that all set, then I can send that out, and that'll be sent off to the customer. They'll get an email, hey, you've got something to sign. Maybe on their iPhone, they open it, sign it with their finger, any initials, anything else. And what's great about this is not only did I not leave NetSuite, either to generate the agreement or to send it out for signature or both, but once that document is signed, you'll notice down here, not only on the communication tab do I have the files that I uploaded, maybe drag and drop, but once it's signed, it will show you that document was signed. And if you even want to go into DocuSign to look at the document, the DocuSign subtab will give you one-click access to open DocuSign and get it. But a signed copy is stored right here on the record. So nobody's running around like, okay, who's got that contract? So great feature there. Again, if you have a lot of documents you have customers sign, I highly recommend you leverage both the document generation tool and an electronic signature tool like DocuSign or Adobe Sign. All right, let's see here. Let me pop back over to our PowerPoint, because the next thing we're going to take a look at is another free tool called Last Sales Activity Date. Now, I'm going to guess that half of you are already using this, because it is something that we like to install if you are, especially if you're leveraging CRM and all this marketing, sales, and customer service capability. But if I go back over to our instance here, if we look at this customer record for Lead Business Technology, you'll notice down here, I have a field called Last Sales Activity. And what's great about that, let me zoom in a little bit more. What's great about this is not only is it going to give me, and it's going to keep this field updated as activity is logged. So as my team either logs phone calls, events, meetings, sends emails, sends an email from within NetSuite. Maybe you've got some email templates out here that you enable your team to create from right here. Select the template and send it out very quickly. But as all that activity takes place, you can see here the last activity was I sent a message on 4/20. So this field is updated. Now, you may say, okay, what's so great about having that field there? Well, if I go back to my dashboard, one tool now is I can have a report, a saved search, a reminder, and I'll show you this just as a reminder view here, my reminders portlet. It'll then show me I've got 87 customers in this demo environment that haven't had sales activity in the last month. I've got 1,700 leads and prospects that don't have sales activity in the last week. And you can set those. Those are simply saved searches that show right here on my dashboard. Of course, you probably know this tool here is, you can color code these based on the levels. The numbers are, green, yellow, red, or whatever color you want. But this is simply a saved search that I created and dropped into my reminders portlet. So my saved search here says, hey, how many customers have we not touched in the last week or the last month or whatever you want it to be? So there's a lot of things you can do with that. Not only can you see that as a data point, but if you so choose, you could build a workflow that says, if a customer hits a certain time period where there's no sales activity or any kind of service activity, doesn't have to be sales activity, trigger a phone call to be scheduled to the account manager of that client. That's the beauty of one platform, NetSuite, workflow, and something like the last sales activity date. So hopefully that'll give you some ideas of how to use that. And that is a bundle. I don't think that's in the SuiteApps store. That's a bundle. It is a public bundle. You can install it. Very easy to configure. And if you want any help with that, certainly let us know.
I'm jumping.
Okay, we're going to jump over to, we're kind of getting toward the end here. The next one we're going to talk about is something new in the last release of NetSuite called Invoice Presentation Templates. The idea here is that you've got a standard invoice view layout. And you probably use that with all your customers. And you may have some customers that would love to say, can we get the invoice to look in a certain way? Now, you know what the scenario is in your business. Maybe one I'll throw out is maybe you're a services organization and the customer said it would be so much easier if we could see every 2 weeks when you invoice us, if that invoice would be grouped by date first and then maybe the project task or maybe the team member who did the work. And so this tool will make it very easy for you to create an invoice layout for a particular customer and associate it to that customer so that when you invoice them, it uses this layout. And I'm going to pop back into, let me show you this for a minute. Let's see, we're going to go over here. And I'm going to, let's see, in this demo instance, I'm going to pop over to the administrator role. The administrator in this instance has access to create these invoice presentation templates. Once this is loaded, it is a free feature of the last release. In this case, I'm the admin, so under my sales menu, under sales, I have invoice presentation templates. And I've got one created for a client called Black Dragon. And what you'll notice in this case is that this client said, hey, we'd really like to look at it by time-based. We want to group it first by date, then by employee. All this is editable. And in fact, all of this is out of the box. You can create these as long as you, in fact, I'll create a new one here in just a minute for you. But once you come in and set this, you can preview it. Now our logo, I think in this instance, is a little bit skewed, but so forgive me for that. But it'll say, you'll get a view here. Okay, does that look right? It's sorted first by date, then by person, then by task, whatever it may be. So the nice thing is, if you come in here and create a new one, you give it a name, all these down here, you just come down and say, how you want the summary to be selected, how you want it grouped, columns, etc. And then in another area, you'll associate that template you create to that customer. So great new feature if you have a need for different invoice layouts for different customers. Good way to make that customer a little bit more satisfied. Okay, let's see. I'm going to talk about a couple more, and then we're going to wrap up because we're getting down to the wire here on time. Oh, by the way, here's a couple more views of the invoice presentation templates. You can see a couple of these samples over here on the right. This one's very similar to what we looked at in my example for Black Dragon. All right, there is a feature or a NetSuite suite app called Deduction and Chargeback Management. You may have a business where from time to time your clients might say, hey, that invoice doesn't look right. I think that line item's wrong. Or maybe you've got credit card charge disputes, things like that. What this tool does is it enables you to easily manage those without having to manually create credit memos and things like that. So you can split the invoice and kind of better manage if you're going to end up writing off a portion of an invoice. This tool kind of gives you that tool to manage it and automate it. So ask us about that if you've got more interest in the deduction and chargeback management tool. The other one that is available, most of your credit cards out there, I shouldn't say most, many of them have pre-built integration with NetSuite. NetSuite and American Express partnered up, and they have a corporate card integration. You do need to have American Express trigger something on your American Express account for this integration to work. But this is a suite app that can be installed and configured to help you better manage and simplify the process of managing charges and paying cards. But we also get a lot of questions about purchasing cards. Customers that may be using a more legacy type card, they've used them for a long time, and they want to go to more of what is considered a purchasing card and hand those out. Brex is one. There are a handful of these out there, but you can ask us, we'll tell you about these. Many of these, the cards are at no charge. You issue them, and then you can deploy the integration, or we can deploy the integration for you, and you can do the same thing here around credit card management. So it just enables better credit card management and employee expense report and management on the employee side as well. So ask us about that. I apologize, we're kind of running out of time, so I'm going to wrap it up there. And I'm going to, Bali, I'm going to turn it over to you because I'm going to see if we've got any questions out there that have come in from the audience. And we'll take those and kind of wrap up here in the next few minutes.
Yeah, I did receive a few questions in the chat. First one was from John. He's asking, what are managed bundles?
Okay, yeah, so managed bundle, you may have remembered back in our instance of NetSuite where in the bundling area, if you go to search and install bundles or let me go back to search and install bundles. So a managed bundle, what that means is, you'll see that here in some of these. A managed bundle means that the provider of that bundle manages the changes and upgrades to that bundle. So when either NetSuite or the third party comes out with an update to the bundle, they will push the upgrade and manage that. You can't modify or see the details of scripts or things like that. Managed kind of protects the IP in that bundle and ensures that it's upgraded appropriately.
All right, another question we got was, who has access to install bundles, and do you have to be an administrator to do so?
Yeah, so the administrator certainly can, because the administrator, and we would hope that you only have one or a couple of those, that you're not broadly using administrator role. because the administrator, the true administrator role, can do anything and everything in NetSuite.
And for the installation of bundles, sorry, Jeff, let me just jump in real quick. Sometimes you might have prerequisites to install a Suite app or a bundle, and it might not show up in the search. So if you're talking to someone else who's using NetSuite and saying that they're using a particular Suite app, that's fantastic. If you can't find it, there might be two reasons why you can't find it. One of them, sometimes there is a certain time frame where you can search and find these apps and install them. I think it's on Pacific time, and I have to check what time it is. I don't remember out of the bat, but the other one, there might be prerequisites as well. So you might have to have NetSuite One World accounts to install some of these Suite apps or bundles as well. And your NetSuite administrator could reach out to your partner and they can help you with this, or we can help you, of course.
Yeah, great point. Great point. Yeah, so if you don't see the search and install bundles, or if you go to the App Store and one of the ones we've talked about doesn't give the ability to install it, it's most likely a permission. So go to your administrator and either ask them to install it, or depending on what you do in the organization, ask them to grant you the permission so that you can do those things. Good question.
And
what others? Any others, Polly?
No,
okay, that was all the questions that came in?
Yep.
Okay, any other questions before we wrap up? All right, very good. Well, thanks everybody for your time. Hopefully in those dozen or so that we talked about, you'll find something valuable. There are many out there, so go out and you'll notice one thing I did here in the search and install bundles. I'm sorted by number of installs, so sometimes that's a great way to say, what are other people using? Of course, you'll see the most common out there is last sales activity date. There are a number out there that we didn't touch on today. You see a few that we did. So take a look out there if you have any questions about any of these that you see that we didn't cover, or maybe something in the Suite App Store, whether it's a free NetSuite Suite app or maybe from a third party. Definitely let us know, and we'd be happy to talk to you about those or share our experience with those. So with that, we will wrap up. Thanks. Feel free to reach out to me or Bali. There's Bali's picture and email address. If you have any questions, feel free to reach out to Bali. My email is the same format, jandrews@velosio.com. Happy to answer any questions, and we appreciate your time. Look forward to talking soon. Thanks, everybody.